psychological story for you. What would happen if you did get bullied and then all of a sudden these psychological disorders happen to you? This is Sapphire Logic. What's up, everybody? This is Purple Sapphire speaking to you guys, and welcome to a new episode of Sapphire Logic. Basically, the first episode. Let me just say this. A lot of people have suffered psychological disorders, and there's something that is going on into my mind. Are psychological disorders the same connected to bullying? Or is it vice versa? Is bullying connected to psychological disorders? Honestly, what I meant. I've been bullied before, and of course that is in the elementary past. I don't want to talk about it. But there is a reason, and I honestly learned this. I said this to myself that there are a lot of psychological disorders that are going on between me and the bullying past me. Not a pretty sight. But let me just say this. A lot of people had suffered from bullying before, and a lot of psychological disorders gets into their mind, like, for example, depression, anxiety, mental disorders, or anything else like that. I don't know. Everyone else would be noticing about this kind of crap that is going on. For most occasional reasons, there is going to be some kind of things that are going on into their own heads, for at least some people would be able to handle things. I would say that there are a lot of people that suffer from psychological disorders, and I understand completely about what you said beforehand. And I really feel bad for you, honestly. There are numerous amounts of psychological disorders that everyone else seeks to adjust. And some of them can lead to suicide, and I understand that because I almost self-harmed myself from beforehand. But luckily for me, never done that in my entire life, never will. But in that case, I would say this. One of the psychological disorders is depression. Some kind of disorder that is actually from, well, sadness. And sadness is kind of a bit of a long-term or short-term kind of process. For me, it was more likely a psychological kind of disorder. But it's not actually some kind of disorder. Like, I don't have that much of an excuse, but I have suffered a lot of depression during my time, so that is going to be a legit moment for most people. I would say this, though. Depression can lead to suicide. And, of course, there are some symptoms that are going to be linked to whatever happens to your own path. For example, you experience a lot of sadness during that time. You'll experience a whole bunch of negativity onto your own mind. And you won't be able to do activities more than ever. You will actually binge eat or actually not eat for at least a while. You cannot sleep. You cannot actually do the activities you like or do them for your own pleasure. Don't even think about it. And of course, the really depressing moment, suicide. I would say that it was honestly awful for people who go through suicide. Especially when it comes to like chronic depression. Not going to be the prettiest sight. Another psychological disorder that people will experience after bullying is actually anxiety. And anxiety can lead to four things: post-traumatic stress disorder, panic attacks, social anxiety, and genetic anxiety, which is possibly a kind of a situation that I would say. Now, for me, anxiety, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, I wasn't diagnosed with it, but it means this. You have experienced a traumatic experience that you ever had in your entire life, and then all of a sudden it just gets away into your own life. You'll have experiencing bad flashbacks, have really occurring nightmares about that experience, and you'll go crazy. No offense. There's some other things like social anxiety, which means that you won't be able to like socialize people without getting nervous. And panic attacks, it's most likely freaking attacks that happen. Your heart will beat fast. You will start to like heavily breathing all of a sudden, and then you want it to feel like you're going to go panicky all of a sudden. And genetic anxiety disorder, is basically something about your genetics that involves anxiety. I'm pretty sure some people may have it due to their families, and most likely that might be a considered case, but you get the idea. Another factor of post-bullying is basically about this: mental disorders. I guess so that mental disorders are pretty much the same kind. Like, for example, you abuse alcohol, drugs, marijuana, some sort of crap like that. I don't really think I'll do that in my entire life and never will. But, of course, that is pretty much what everyone else would say during that time. And, yeah, that's kind of a bit legit if anyone else would be as capable as it is. Nobody else would be able to give that kind of crap anyways. But there are a lot of things that are going on into people's head. It's not for the victims itself. Bullies can experience post-bullying as well. Not as victims, but as bullies. But you get the idea. And you may think, I thought bullies have more power over the victims. Well, victims suffer more than just that. But bullies can also suffer. They may have similar symptoms like the victims does, but you have no idea that bullies can experience a lot of anger issues. Obviously, I would say that bullies can experience a lot of anger issues. They always get in trouble, they skip school whatsoever, basically because they always act like some pure nonsense whatsoever. When it comes to like victims and bullies, they have different symptoms. They have different relationships they can handle. They have some sort of family relationships that they cannot handle. Like, for example, for victims, they usually isolate themselves into a room and they don't want to socialize their parents or their siblings most of the time. While bullies arguing like no other, and they just completely go all around the place. I don't really know what I'm saying. For victims, when it comes to like friends or spouses relationships, they tend to be very, very anxious. Well, not very, very, but just very. And sometimes their spouses or their friends, they usually just reject them. And that will break their hearts eventually. As for bullies, they mentally abuse them. Mainly focusing on physical abuse, which I'm going to get to that later. I know that bullies can have friends, but sometimes friends cannot maintain bully relationships. Not a pretty sight. Of course, bullying, well, let's just say bullies can have a bit of a issue. Let's just say that. And then victims. Well, I'm a victim myself. I'm not a bully myself, but you can learn a lot of experiences when it comes to people with victims and bullies. Let's just say that. Let me just say this. It's not bullies and victims that are going to be affected from this. Bystanders and adults can experience this as well. Bystanders, they don't know what the bully is going to do next when they see someone on the ground. They either stood up for each other or get into a downfall which nobody else would even want to. And all of a sudden, things are going to go on to their head. They don't even know what the hell's going on. Basically, they might increase their chances of abusing alcohol. I learned that. It's in my essay, damn it. You should at least give it. But I'm no expert myself, but I'm just putting out my opinion there. But it's not actually logical if anyone else would see that. I would say this. A lot of people have suffered a lot. Bystanders can suffer a whole lot. Well, not a whole lot, but just a lot. Let's just say this. I don't really think that they're going to be able to stand up to the bully, depending on how aggressive they are. And, of course, that is going to be legit if anyone else would be as capable as it is. Not going to be pretty. As for adults, well, basically, if you're going to adulthood right now, which I am, you will experience a lot of mental problems onto your own way. Like, for example, bullies can be unhappy or aggressive adults when they are actually like that. And not only that, they will be a little bit, let's just say lonely. And then ended up committing suicide. That's a legit thing. They can happen. As for victims, they'll suffer a lot more than bullies. Not only would they get depression, not only would they experience a whole lot of sadness onto their own lives, they cannot maintain friends or spouses relationships. There is the kind of logical reason that everyone else wouldn't even know about. However, there is hope. There are a whole bunch of help that is available to both victims and bullies at the same time, which I said that in my video, Seeking Help for Depression, which I am going to be putting that in the description if I can be able to remember that. And of course, that is going to be the whole thing. So in that case, that's going to be the end of Sapphire Logic for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you want to, I'm not going to force you. And this is Purple Sapphire signing off. I'll see you guys in the next video. Anyways, I'm going to post this video about this because there are a whole lot of people who suffer from mental issues themselves, which is keeping away from them from work, school, other activities, and some sorts like that.